A vast artificial canyon lies silent, carved for a single stone. This is the immense forgotten quarry, a place where ancient societies once devoted entire districts to the creation of one monumental block. By the end, you will understand the startling truth of how these sites reveal a civilization's deepest ambitions and its ultimate vulnerabilities. What drove a culture to pour every resource into a single, silent giant, and what catastrophic secret caused them to walk away forever? We are about to walk through these abandoned industrial heartlands, where rock was not just material, but a living testament to divine will and human unity. What do you believe is the true cost of a civilization's grandest dream? This drive to carve a single message from the living earth is perhaps humanity's most audacious architectural signature. The monolithic ambition is not about building something large. It is about making the impossible permanent. It is the decision to bypass the logic of bricks and mortar, to reject the idea of assembly, and instead to command a mountain to become a monument. Think of it not as construction, but as revelation. The sculptors are not adding material, they are subtracting everything that is not the divine message, the eternal king, or the unified identity of a people. This is why the quarry is the true heart of the endeavor. Within that raw, chaotic landscape of fractured bedrock, the perfect form already exists, waiting to be uncovered. The entire monumental process, from that first ceremonial strike to the final raising, is a ritual of bringing something preordained into the world. Experts like archaeologists have mapped the remains of carefully engineered transport ramps, level working platforms carved directly into the bedrock, and the clear footprints of temporary structures that housed tools and workers. This was not a seasonal camp. It was a semi-permanent settlement, a dedicated district where every path, every shelter, every activity was oriented toward one monumental task, freeing that single 1,000-ton block from the earth. This transforms our understanding completely. The quarry was not just a source of stone. It was the first and most critical phase of the monument itself, an industrial city whose entire reason for existence was the birth of a giant. The logistical reality of such a place is almost overwhelming to consider. To sustain a focused workforce for months or even years, you need more than just stone cutters. You need engineers to design the extraction sequence and the ramps. You need carpenters to maintain tools and build sledges. You need potters to make vessels for water and food. You need cooks, coordinators, and overseers. The quarry district becomes a microcosm of the entire society, but with a single, laser-focused output. This implies a level of economic organization far beyond simple tribute or volunteer labor. It suggests a command economy capable of redirecting vast resources, food, materials, skilled labor, away from other needs and into this one symbolic project. What kind of authority could orchestrate such a feat, and what did the people living in this stone-carving city believe they were achieving? Their daily lives were literally shaped by the growing void in the earth and the emerging form of the monolith, a physical reminder that their collective effort was becoming something eternal. This centralized effort solves the puzzle of how such massive stones were even conceived, but it creates another, more haunting one. For if all of a society's eggs are in one basket, what happens when that basket is simply too heavy to lift? Granite does not forgive a single mistake. In the sun-blasted quarries of Aswan, the proof of that statement lies half-carved from the living bedrock, a colossal 1,200-ton lesson in stone. This is the unfinished Obelisk, a monument that never stood, forever trapped in the womb of its own creation. The scale is almost incomprehensible. If completed, it would have been the single heaviest piece of stone ever shaped by ancient Egyptian hands. But a catastrophic crack, a flaw hidden deep within the granite, brought the entire endeavor to a shuddering halt. The workers simply set down their tools and walked away, leaving a perfect snapshot of their world frozen in time. This abandoned giant is our clearest window into the monolithic process, because here, the work was never finished, never obscured by final polishing or ceremonial glory. We can see every tool mark, every strategic decision. The method is brutally simple, yet demanded superhuman patience. Workers did not cut the granite so much as they pummeled it into submission. Using fist-sized balls of dolerite, a stone even harder than granite, they pounded a network of deep trenches around the intended obelisk, hour after hour, day after day. Literally vibrating the block free from the earth. The surrounding quarry is not a chaotic scar. It is a meticulously organized industrial landscape. Archaeologists have identified distinct zones. Here, the initial rough shaping took place. Over there, a smooth ramp area where the final polishing would have occurred. And leading down to the Nile, carefully engineered channels and loading bays where the finished obelisk would have been slid onto a waiting barge. This was a district with a single purpose. As Egyptologist Mark's work suggests, operating this complex required a temporary city of its own, thousands of laborers, specialist engineers to direct the pounding and monitor for cracks, overseers to manage supplies, and all the support roles needed to sustain them. The obelisk's failure was more than a technical setback. It represented a staggering economic loss. Years of coordinated labor, vast quantities of food and tools, the entire investment of this quarry city, all of it was rendered void by that one fatal fracture. This frozen moment teaches us the immense stakes. Monolithic engineering was a high-wire act without a net. The planning had to be perfect, the execution flawless, because the cost of failure was not just a broken stone, but a broken dream that could shake the very authority that commanded it. Yet for every failure left in the quarry, countless successes were somehow moved. This raises the next, even more baffling question. How do you persuade a mountain to go for a walk? The true test of a monolith began the moment it was freed from the earth. Extraction was a monumental act of faith, but transport was a high-stakes engineering puzzle that transformed the entire landscape into a temporary machine. To move a stone weighing hundreds of tons, you do not simply drag it. You must rebuild the world between the quarry and its destination. This required the creation of an entirely new, temporary district dedicated solely to motion, a linear city of effort stretching for miles. The most evocative examples are the ancient roads of Easter Island. The island's volcanic slopes are crisscrossed by clearly defined avenues, some meticulously paved, leading directly from the quarry of Down toward the coastal platforms. Lining these paths like silent waypoints are fallen who never completed their journey. These roads were not just dirt tracks. They were engineered transport corridors, leveled and surfaced to reduce friction, requiring their own dedicated crews for construction and upkeep. This was a sacred procession frozen in time, turning the entire island into a ritual landscape of movement. Modern experiments have tried to replicate this feat. Researchers like Terry Hunt have orchestrated teams using replica wooden sledges and ropes to move multi-ton replicas. The results are illuminating. It was not about brute strength, but about rhythm, coordination, and relentless patience. Dozens of individuals, moving in perfect unison, could coax a giant forward a few feet at a time, guided by chanted commands. This operation required a secondary army of logistics. People to prepare and repair the wooden sledges, teams to constantly wet the path ahead to reduce friction, coordinators to clear obstacles and direct the pull. The stone's journey became a moving festival of labor, a linear district that existed only for as long as the monolith was in transit. Every hill became an engineering challenge, every valley a planned route. This transforms our understanding of the monolithic effort. The Quarry district birthed the stone, but the transport corridor was its midwife, a fragile, temporary lifeline that connected the dream to its final purpose. The sheer number of people and the precision required for this phase reveals a society capable of breathtaking organization. It pushes us to ask the fundamental question underpinning all of this. What kind of social engine could possibly power such a coordinated, years-long endeavor? And what held it together when the strain was at its greatest? The silent volcano holds the entire story of Easter Island in its stone. This is not a simple quarry. It is a factory for gods, a sacred workshop where the island's identity was literally carved from the slopes of a single, dormant crater. Nearly 400 in every stage of creation remain embedded in the volcanic tuff. Some are just emerging outlines, ghostly faces pushing from the rock. Others stand fully formed, staring from the crater walls as if awaiting a final command. This dense concentration transforms the entire crater into a single, sprawling district with one purpose: to birth the giant stone ancestors. The organization here was breathtakingly efficient. Archaeologist Anne van Tilburg's detailed studies reveal a clear production line. Master carvers, likely belonging to elite lineages, would have overseen the initial outline and the delicate facial features. Apprentices and teams of stoneworkers handled the rough shaping, the pounding with basalt picks to free the broad backs of the statues. Separate, specialized workshops around the crater's base were devoted to carving the distinctive red stone topknots, and the profound, final act of inlaying the eyes made of white coral and obsidian. This was not merely an industrial site. The act of carving was a sacred ritual, a process of bringing ancestral power into the physical world. The quarry itself became a temple, the constant tap-tap-tap of stone on stone, a form of ongoing worship. For generations, the society's creative energy, its skilled labor, and its spiritual focus were channeled almost entirely into this one hillside. Was the island's beating heart, both its economic engine and its spiritual core. This hyperspecialization offers a powerful and ultimately cautionary parallel to other monolithic cult centers. When a civilization's most vital resources, its people, its identity, its faith, are poured into a single monumental output, it creates a profound vulnerability. The very act that unifies and empowers the society also makes its entire worldview dependent on the continued success of that one endeavor. What happens to that intricate social machine when the quarry, for whatever reason, finally falls silent? The stone itself had to be chosen with the care of a sacred oracle. Before a single tool was raised, ancient engineers were also master geologists, reading the landscape for the perfect union of material and meaning. The selection of a quarry site was never just about finding rock. It was a profound negotiation between three powerful forces: the practical demands of geology, the brutal mathematics of logistics, and the intangible pull of spiritual belief. The right stone needed to be workable enough to shape with primitive tools, yet durable enough to defy the centuries. It had to possess an aesthetic quality, a specific color, a unique sparkle, a resonant ring when struck, that set it apart from ordinary stone and marked it as a substance worthy of the gods. This tripartite demand explains why some quarries are found in the most inconvenient, almost inaccessible places imaginable. The journey and the struggle were part of the stone's value, embedding its story with hardship before it ever reached its destination. Consider the staggering journey of the bluestones at Stonehenge. These smaller, distinctive pillars were not sourced from the rolling plains surrounding the monument. They were hauled, dragged, and possibly floated over 150 miles from the hills in Wales. Modern geological analysis, like that conducted by Richard, can fingerprint the stone, matching it precisely to outcrops in those distant hills. But the question remains, why? The practical effort is almost unimaginable. The leading theory is that the stone itself was considered sacred. Perhaps it was believed to have healing properties, or it was intrinsically linked to the ancestors or deities of the people who built Stonehenge. The stone was not a mere building block. It was a relic in its raw form, and its epic pilgrimage from Wales to Salisbury Plain was a necessary part of its power. That journey, in turn, would have created a string of temporary waypoints, resting places that became minor ritual sites themselves, where local communities might have assisted in the move. Sharing in the prestige of the sacred task, this pattern repeats across the world. In Egypt, the far-flung quarries of Aswan were chosen for their flawless rose granite, a stone associated with the sun god Ra and meant to last for eternity. The Maya sought a specific type of limestone that could be precisely cut and carved. The quarry site, by virtue of containing this magical substance, often became a sacred destination in its own right. Extraction was not merely a mining operation. It was a ceremony. The first strike of the hammer might be accompanied by offerings. The quarry floor could become an open-air temple, where the act of freeing the stone was a form of communion with the earth spirit that provided it. This dual purpose, practical and spiritual, explains the immense permanent infrastructure we find. If you are not just mining rock but harvesting divine essence, you build more than simple shelters. You build altars, processional ways, and housing for priests alongside the engineers. The quarry district becomes a liminal space, a factory for the supernatural, where every worker is participating in a rite as much as a labor project. This deep fusion of purpose turns the site selection into the first and most critical act of the monument's creation, binding the stone's origin to its ultimate meaning forever. The silence of these ancient quarries is deceptive, for they were once places of roaring human activity. To understand who built these districts, we must listen for the echoes of that vanished workforce. It was not a single class of laborers, but a complete functioning society in miniature, assembled for one supreme task. At the top were the master artisans, the engineers of stone who could visualize the finished monolith within the raw bedrock. Their knowledge was sacred, passed down through generations, blending precise geometry with ritual practice. Beneath them moved the armies of conscripted labor, likely farmers providing seasonal service as a form of tax or tribute to a king or a temple. And woven throughout were the true believers, volunteers driven by profound religious fervor, for whom moving a stone was an act of devotion that would earn spiritual merit. This intricate social machine is perfectly illustrated by the Olmec colossal heads of ancient Mexico. Each massive visage, weighing up to 20 tons, was carved from solid basalt boulders sourced from the mountains, then transported over 60 miles of swampy lowland, all without the wheel or draft animals. Anthropologist suggests this staggering effort functioned as a powerful form of communal tribute. Different villages or kin groups would have been responsible for specific stages, extracting a boulder, rough shaping it, hauling it to the ceremonial center. By contributing their labor to a single, awe-inspiring project that celebrated a ruler or a common ancestor, these distinct groups were ritually bound to the central authority. The shared hardship forged a new, collective identity. Within the Quarry district itself, this social organization reached a fascinating complexity. It was a micro-society with its own strict hierarchy and daily rhythms. Beyond the stonecutters, an entire support city hummed with activity. Cooks prepared vast communal meals in constant shifts to feed thousands. Toolmakers worked tirelessly, sharpening and replacing the stone mauls and chisels that were worn down daily. Carpenters built and repaired the wooden sledges, levers, and ramps. Coordinators and scribes tracked progress and managed supplies. Guards maintained order and protected valuable materials. Administrators, likely priests or royal overseers, ensured the work aligned with the sacred blueprint. This social dimension transforms our view of the quarry from a mere worksite into a cultural crucible. For months or years, individuals from different walks of life lived, ate, and worked shoulder to shoulder toward a single, visible goal. The repetitive, physically demanding labor, synchronized by chants or drumbeats, became a ritual in itself. The act of building was the act of belonging. In this temporary city devoted to a stone, social cohesion was not just encouraged, it was engineered. The shared calluses and the collective pride, in seeing the monolith slowly emerge, reinforced a powerful, unified purpose that strengthened the very governance model that commanded the work in the first place. This reveals the true genius of the monolithic endeavor. It built more than monuments, it built nations. Yet, such concentrated effort carries a hidden fragility. What happens when the faith that fuels the machine begins to waver, or the resources that feed it finally run dry? The stone was not just being moved, it was being awakened. To understand the staggering devotion these quarries demanded, we must look beyond the engineering and into the realm of sacred theater. The extraction of a monolith was rarely a purely mechanical act. It was a profound ritual, a ceremonial dialogue between the community and the earth, designed to transform backbreaking labor into a divine necessity. This ritualization is the hidden key that unlocks the mystery of such total commitment. At places like in Turkey, one of the world's oldest known temple complexes, the very act of quarrying the massive T-shaped limestone pillars appears to have been woven into a ceremonial cycle. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of large-scale feasts near the quarries, with bones of wild animals suggesting communal gatherings that coincided with specific stages of the work. Each pillar, once freed, was not merely hauled to the site. It was likely escorted in a ritual procession, its journey marked by offerings and celebrations. This transformed the entire industrial landscape into a stage for myth-making. The Quarry district became a sacred precinct, where the community collectively enacted the story of their gods or ancestors, bringing order from the raw chaos of the stone. This symbolic layer is etched directly into the rock at sites like El in Egypt, a major sandstone quarry that supplied stone for temples across the Nile. Here, the walls are not blank. They are inscribed with votive niches, prayers to the goddess Hathor, protector of miners, and detailed depictions of the pharaoh making offerings to the gods of the quarry. These carvings are not graffiti, they are declarations. They tell us that the stone itself was considered a divine substance, the very flesh of the earth deities. To cut it was not an act of destruction, but of careful liberation, a holy harvest that required constant ritual appeasement and gratitude. This perspective reshapes everything. When an entire community devoted its district to a single stone, it was not merely undertaking a construction project. It was participating in a cosmological duty. The monolith's creation was essential to maintaining the balance between the human world and the spiritual one. The act of carving and moving it was a repetitive, physical prayer that ensured the sun would rise. the Nile would flood, or the ancestors would watch over the living. The immense resource allocation, the years of focused labor, all of it was justified by this supreme necessity. The stone object was not an end in itself. It was a conduit, a permanent antenna erected to channel divine power into the heart of the community. This deep fusion of the practical and the spiritual turns the quarry from a worksite into a temple, and every laborer into a priest participating in a rite that sustained the very order of the universe. High in the Andes, the quarries that built a fortress whisper of an empire's granite will. The site is the monumental zigzagging walls that loom over Peru, and the stones that form it are themselves monuments to a different kind of achievement. These are not just blocks, they are gigantic, irregular puzzles of andesite, some weighing over 100 tons, fitted together with a precision that defies the rugged mountain terrain. To understand how such a feat was possible, we must journey to the source, to the quarries of, and others scattered across the harsh landscape. Here, the Inca approach to monolithic creation reveals a distinct model, one of decentralized production fused with absolute imperial control. The extraction technique was in patience and physics. Workers did not simply smash the stone. Using harder stone hammers, they would painstakingly peck a line of small holes along a desired fracture line. Then they would drive wooden wedges into these holes and soak them with water. As the wood expanded, immense, controlled pressure would build, coaxing the bedrock to split along a perfectly straight plane. This method allowed for the harvesting of massive, relatively flat-faced blocks without explosive force, a testament to an intimate understanding of the material itself. But freeing the stone was only the first battle. The true test was the journey. Historian La Inca, drawing on ancestral accounts, describes a spectacle of organized might. Thousands of men, organized into teams by their home provinces, would haul the colossal blocks with thick, braided fiber ropes. They moved across astonishingly steep and uneven ground, following carefully scouted routes that transformed the empire's famed road system into a specialized supply corridor for stone. This was not a single, linear district like on Easter Island, but a network. The quarry zones themselves became temporary industrial hubs. Around them, archaeologists identify the remains of engineered ramps to move blocks from the quarry floor wide, leveled resting areas, where teams could switch out and ropes could be inspected. And likely small ceremonial platforms. These were places to make offerings to the Earth Mother, to thank her for the stone and to plead for safe passage. This integrated system highlights the Inca genius for mobilization. The labor was provided through the system, a form of rotational public service where communities across the empire contributed workers for state projects. A man from a coastal valley might find himself pulling ropes in the high Andes, not as a slave, but as a contributor to an imperial vision that bound all peoples together. The Quarry district, therefore, was more than a worksite. It was a provincial theater of state power and religious duty, a place where the abstract authority of the Inca became physically real through shared, grueling effort. The stone's arduous pilgrimage from the quarry to the fortress wall was a ritual of incorporation, weaving the distant landscape and its people directly into the empire's symbolic heart. This case shows a quarry system scaled to match a territory, proving that monolithic ambition could be woven into the very fabric of a continent-spanning administration. Yet it also presents a final, haunting question about all such endeavors. What is the ultimate fate of a society that becomes too proficient, too focused on carving its legacy in stone? These silent quarries were once filled with the rhythm of countless hammers. A testament to a forgotten engineering genius. The tools left behind are not mere artifacts. They are the physical language of a dialogue between human ingenuity and unyielding stone. In Egypt's granite quarries, workers wielded fist-sized balls of dolerite, a stone even harder than the granite they were shaping. They did not cut. They pounded, vibrating the stone free along precise lines, with a patience we can scarcely comprehend. In other cultures, the discovery of metal brought bronze and copper chisels, allowing for more delicate work, but the principle remained one of relentless, controlled force. Yet perhaps the most ingenious technique was a form of ancient thermal engineering known as fire setting. Workers would build a fierce fire directly against the rock face, heating the stone to a tremendous temperature. Then they would suddenly douse it with water or vinegar. The rapid, violent contraction caused the rock to fracture along predictable lines, creating manageable blocks from even the most stubborn granite. This simple yet brilliant application of physics allowed them to conquer materials that should have been impossible with their technology. The organization within the quarry itself reveals a mind for logistics as sharp as any chisel. There was not a chaotic scramble, it was a carefully orchestrated industrial stage. Archaeologists find clear evidence of tiered working ledges, allowing teams of laborers to operate at different heights on the same monolith. They carved systematic channels and grooves to direct stone debris and rainwater away from the work area, keeping the platform clear. Storage niches for tools were cut into nearby walls, and ramps were engineered into the quarry floor long before the stone ever began its journey. This speaks to a level of project management and forethought that rivals any modern construction site. This entire technological ecosystem, the tools, the techniques, the site organization, formed a specialized knowledge district that existed alongside the physical one. Master their skills honed over a lifetime would train apprentices in a direct, hands-on lineage. They knew which angle to strike, how to listen for the telltale sound of a hidden flaw, and the precise moment to apply the water during fire setting. This was not written in manuals. It was carried in muscle memory and oral tradition, passed from one generation to the next through shared labor. This is the profound vulnerability of such a system. When the social or economic structures that supported these quarry districts collapsed, this intricate, embodied knowledge could vanish within a generation or two. The stones remained, but the living wisdom of how to move them faded into legend. We are left to reconstruct this lost expertise from fragments. From the wear patterns on a discarded stone mall, from the soot stains on a quarry wall, from the experimental archaeology of modern teams trying to replicate the feats. The quarry thus becomes a monument to two kinds of achievement: the physical ambition of the monolith, and the invisible, yet even more impressive, architecture of human knowledge that made it possible. But this workforce of thousands did not live on stone dust and prayer alone. To sustain the relentless rhythm of the hammer, an entire hidden economy had to hum in the background, a silent machine devoted to a single purpose: feeding the stone. Every laborer in the quarry district required a daily intake of calories, liters of water, and a steady supply of tools that would wear down and break. This was not a small-scale operation. It was a massive logistical undertaking that implies the existence of a vast supporting network, an agricultural hinterland, a web of trade routes, and a system of tribute or taxation powerful enough to redirect the lifeblood of a society toward a hole in the ground. The true cost of a monolith was measured in bread, beans, and braided rope. We can see this economic engine with startling clarity at places like Mons, in the eastern desert of Egypt, a remote Roman quarry that supplied the empire with its prized granite. Here, the barren silence is broken by thousands of pottery shards called ostraca, used as notepads for the mundane business of running a desert city of stone. These fragments record everything from requests for new chisels and donkey shoes to urgent pleas for more barley and lentils. They detail the arrivals and departures of supply caravans, the rations issued to different work gangs, and even notes on worker illnesses. This was a complex, bureaucratic supply chain stretched to its limit, a lifeline snaking across hundreds of miles of desert to keep the granite flowing to Rome. The quarry was not self-sufficient. It was a voracious consumer at the end of a very long line. This reveals a profound truth about the economy of the monolith. It functioned as a concentrated microcosm of the entire state economy. Resources, food from fertile valleys, skilled labor from workshops, administrative oversight from the capital, were all systematically funneled away from other potential uses and into this one symbolic project. The allocation of such immense capital tells us more about a civilization's priorities than any grand inscription. A society willing to invest generations of surplus, to commandeer the labor of its farmers during critical planting seasons, and to maintain a permanent supply line into a wasteland is making a deafening statement. It declares that the symbolic power of the stone, its role in reinforcing divine right, social unity, or imperial glory, is more valuable than almost any practical alternative. This financial commitment is etched not just in the quarries, but in the wider landscape. The roads built for stone transport became trade routes. The agricultural regions that fed the workers expanded under state management. The very act of concentrating wealth and labor for the monument stimulated economic activity in a vast, interconnected web. Yet this beautiful, brutal efficiency contains the seeds of a civilization's potential fragility. When so much of a society's energy is channeled into a single, non-utilitarian goal, what remains to cushion the blow when external pressures arrive? Or when the faith that justifies such expense finally begins to waver far from the main statue workshop, a different kind of stone was being gathered. What produced the solemn ancestors, the vibrant red crowns that would adorn them were born in a separate, equally dramatic landscape, the volcanic crater of. Here, the quarry was not for bodies, but for the essence of power itself. The distinctive red Scoria stone used to carve the massive cylindrical topknots placed upon the completed. This was not a general-purpose stone yard. It was a highly specialized industrial district, a factory with one exclusive output, revealing a startling sophistication in the island's production system. The very existence of this separate site tells us that the monolithic industry of Easter Island was not a single, monolithic effort. It was a carefully orchestrated supply chain, with different districts responsible for distinct components that would only unite at the final ceremonial site. The geography of it is breathtaking and treacherous. The quarry works are perched on the steep inner slopes of a vast crater, its floor a deep lake. Scattered around the rim, archaeologists find extraction pits where the porous red stone was loose, and rough, partially shaped cylinders abandoned where they were carved. This was dangerous, skilled work in a precarious location, far removed from the main statue quarry. The logistical implication is profound. It meant that the society had to coordinate not one, but two major extraction operations simultaneously, each with its own workforce, its own toolmakers, and its own transport challenges. The red scoria had to be shaped into multi-ton cylinders, then transported across miles of rugged terrain to meet the weighting, likely at the coastal platforms. This compartmentalization speaks to a complex social organization beneath the surface. Scholars like Anne van Tilburg suggest that control over these different quarries and production stages may have been managed by distinct kin groups or specialist guilds. One lineage might have held the sacred knowledge and rights to carve the ancestral faces at. Another, perhaps with a different spiritual connection to the volcano, might have overseen the quarrying and initial shaping of the powerful red crowns at. This division of labor and material sourcing transforms our view of the society from a simple, unified workforce into a network of interdependent specialists, all contributing their piece to a grand, communal spiritual project. The final assembly of statue and topknot was more than a construction phase. It was a ritual of unification, where the separate products of these different landscape temples were brought together, physically binding the contributions and authority of multiple groups into a single, awe-inspiring symbol. The silent, separate quarry thus adds a crucial layer to our understanding. It shows that the true monument was not just but the intricate island-wide system that created it, a system of specialized districts, managed resources, and coordinated belief that turned an entire culture into a living machine for making stone giants. The final silence of a quarry is its most eloquent chapter. These immense excavations were not simply closed down like a modern factory. They were fossilized, capturing a precise moment when the grand ambition met an immovable reality. The reasons for abandonment are as varied as the cultures themselves, but they often converge on a single, profound truth. A society's ability to dream in stone can outlast its capacity to sustain that dream. A sudden shift in spiritual belief could render a multi-generational project spiritually obsolete overnight. Imagine the profound confusion, or perhaps relief, among the workers at a site like the unfinished obelisk in Aswan when the order came to stop. The ceremonial purpose for that specific stone may have evaporated with a new pharaoh's different devotion, leaving the tools exactly where they fell, the giant forever trapped in its bed. The investment was not just abandoned, it was willingly sacrificed, the economic loss deemed less important than theological alignment. Environmental pressures could apply a slower, more insidious break. The prevailing hypothesis for Easter Island Silent suggests a tragic convergence. The very act of moving the statues required vast quantities of wood for sledges and rollers. As the island's forests dwindled, the practical means of transport vanished. The spiritual imperative to carve ancestors remained, but the physical ability to deliver them to their coastal altars did not. The quarries became not just workshops, but graveyards for unfinished giants, a stark monument to a society that perhaps could no longer reach the very gods it was trying to embody. This type of abandonment speaks to a gradual, agonizing realization, a slow-motion disconnect between cultural ambition and ecological reality. Archaeologists read these abandoned landscapes like forensic detectives. The pattern of artifacts tells a vivid story of departure. A quarry floor littered with tools in a state of immediate use, a stone maul dropped beside a fresh chip, a water jug left upright, points to a sudden, unplanned halt. It suggests an event, perhaps a conflict, a rapid political change, or a natural disaster that caused an immediate evacuation. In contrast, a site showing systematic recovery of valuable materials, like metal tools being carefully collected, indicates a planned, orderly shutdown. The work was concluded, not interrupted. Then there are the most human traces of all, graffiti. A worker's name etched into the quarry wall, a rough sketch of a familiar animal, a simple tally mark counting the days. These personal marks transform the site from an industrial complex into a lived-in space. They remind us that the departure was not just an economic or political event, but a deeply personal one for the individuals who had invested their sweat and years into the stone. Studying why these districts were forgotten offers a crucial lens into the resilience of the societies that built them. It helps distinguish between a flexible culture that could redirect its energies when a project became untenable, and a rigid one that may have poured its last resources into a failing symbol. Each abandoned block, each silent hammer, is a poignant testament to the impermanence of human endeavor. These quarries stand as a powerful counterpoint to the monoliths that were successfully raised. They show us that for every eternal stone that reached its pedestal, there were countless others, and the dreams they carried that remained forever anchored in the earth, waiting for a future that never came. This leads us to a final, reflective question about the legacy these places leave behind, not in stone, but in the very way we see our own place in history. The choice to carve a mountain into a single block was never the only path to greatness. Across the globe, other monumental societies took a strikingly different approach. The classic Maya, for example, rarely created immense centralized quarries. Their sprawling city-states were built from limestone, a material they sourced not from one sacred pit, but from hundreds of small, local quarries scattered around each construction site. This contrast between the concentrated quarry district and diffuse sourcing is like comparing a cathedral workshop to a neighborhood building project, and it reveals everything about the societies that chose each path. The Maya method was pragmatic and adaptable. Builders would essentially dig a quarry right where they needed the stone, often using the resulting pit as a foundational reservoir or a ceremonial, once the building was complete. This decentralized system suggests a different kind of power structure. While still commanded by elites and priests, the work could be managed more locally, with individual neighborhoods or guilds responsible for specific temples or palaces. The stone itself was a practical material, not necessarily a sacred substance from a single, hallowed source. Its value came from the labor of carving and the building it became, not from a mythical journey from a distant mountain. This diffuse model highlights by its very absence what the dedicated quarry district truly represents. The immense quarry is not a natural outcome of wanting to build big. It is a deliberate, costly cultural invention. It emerges under a very specific set of conditions. First, you need a political authority so centralized and powerful that it can command the redirection of an entire society's labor force for a non-utilitarian goal. Second, you often find a spiritual ideology that sanctifies the source material itself, whether it is the rose granite of Aswan linked to the sun god, or the volcanic tuff of seen as the flesh of the ancestors. The stone's origin becomes part of its magic. Finally, it requires a geological reality where the perfect material is found in one concentrated location, rather than being widely available. When these three elements converge, absolute authority, a cult of the stone, and a singular geological source, the dedicated quarry district is born. It becomes the physical factory for a unified state religion and identity. Comparing the two models helps us see the monolithic quarry for what it really was, a tool of unprecedented social engineering. The Maya system allowed for flexibility and resilience. If one quarry was exhausted, another could be opened nearby. But the quarry district model created a powerful, fragile bottleneck. It concentrated not just labor, but meaning, faith, and economic risk into one landscape. This makes the eventual silence of these places so profound. They stand as evidence of a civilization, putting all its ideological eggs in one basket, choosing the awe-inspiring power of a single, perfect stone over the adaptable, distributed strength of many. That choice, more than any other, defines the immense forgotten quarry and the haunting ambition it represents. The silence we perceive is only half the story. An emerging field called is now listening for the lost soundscape of these places, revealing that the Quarry district was not just a visual or physical space, but a deeply resonant one. The very act of extraction created a powerful auditory environment, a symphony of labor that may have been as carefully orchestrated as the work itself. Imagine the constant, rhythmic pounding of stone hammers against granite, a deep, percussive heartbeat echoing off the high quarry walls. This was not random noise. Researchers like Stephen J. Waller, who studies sound reflection at ancient rock art sites, propose that such natural acoustics were integral to the experience. The geometry of a quarry could transform it into a giant amphitheater, where the echoes of a chanted prayer or a foreman's call would roll across reaching every laborer in unison. This sonic dimension served a profound dual purpose. On a practical level, rhythmic sound is a powerful tool for coordination. The synchronized strike of dozens of hammers, guided by a drumbeat or a simple chant, turns individual effort into a single, efficient machine. It sets a pace, reduces fatigue, and ensures that complex maneuvers like the careful turning of a massive block happen in perfect harmony. But the acoustics likely reached far deeper, into the realm of ritual. In a culture that saw the stone as a divine substance, the act of striking it would have been charged with meaning. The ringing tone produced when a hammer hit just right might have been interpreted as the voice of the stone itself, a sign of approval from the earth spirit. The quarry walls, acting as a natural sound chamber, would amplify this sacred dialogue, enveloping the workers in an immersive atmosphere where every strike was both a physical and a spiritual act. This transforms our understanding of the workers' daily reality. They were not just cutting rock in a dusty pit. They were participants in a multi-sensory performance, where the thunder of collective labor, the chanting of prayers, and the mysterious echoes from the stone face all combined to create a powerful state of shared focus and belief. The soundscape itself became a bonding agent, weaving the individual into the collective effort and turning the arduous, dangerous work into a resonant ceremony. It suggests that the choice of a specific quarry might have been influenced not only by the quality of the stone, but by the quality of its sound, the way it sang when worked. In this resonant chamber, the community did not just build a monument. They performed it, their labor sustained by a soundtrack written in echo and rhythm, a forgotten layer of meaning that still whispers, if we know how to listen. This integrated production zone reached its absolute zenith on the Giza Plateau. The Great Pyramids did not simply rise from the desert, they emerged directly from it, in the most literal and efficient way possible. The iconic structures are built primarily from a local limestone, and the source was not a distant mountain. It was the very ground upon which the workers stood. Vast quarries were opened in a belt around the construction sites, creating a direct, almost seamless feed of material from pit to pyramid. Archaeologist Mark's meticulous mapping reveals a landscape engineered with breathtaking precision. These quarries were not random holes. They were carefully shaped basins, and they served a dual, ingenious purpose. As workers extracted the white casing stones, they simultaneously carved out the infrastructure for the project. Most remarkably, the main quarry south of the Great Pyramid was designed to function as a harbor. A canal, fed by the annual Nile flood, would have brought the precious granite for interior chambers all the way from Aswan, hundreds of miles to the south, and terminated right in this man-made basin. The heavy granite blocks could be offloaded at the quarry's edge, while the local limestone was already being cut from its walls. This was a single, synchronized industrial machine. The entire Giza zone became a monolithic production district where quarrying, transport, and construction were not sequential steps, but simultaneous, interdependent processes. The scale of material movement is almost beyond comprehension. To build the Great Pyramid of Khufu alone, an estimated 2.3 million blocks were used. The volume of stone removed from the surrounding quarries is nearly equal to the volume of the pyramid itself. This extraction was so vast it created permanent, artificial canyons in the plateau. The monument did not just occupy the landscape, it actively and permanently reshaped it, leaving behind a negative space that mirrors the positive mass of the pyramid. Here, the quarry district concept operated at its peak efficiency and scale. The workers' settlement, recently discovered by ST's team, was not a distant camp. It was an integral part of this zone, housing the bakers, cooks, toolmakers, and administrators who kept the machine running. The rhythm of life here was dictated by the rhythm of stone. The constant sound of copper chisels on limestone, the shouts of teams guiding blocks onto sledges, the steady pull of ropes along prepared causeways leading directly to the rising structure. This closed-loop system minimized waste and maximized control. It represents the ultimate expression of a society's ability to channel its entire productive force into a single, awe-inspiring goal. The Giza quarries show us the concept not in theory, but in its most grand and physically realized form. The pyramids are the destination, but these hollowed-out basins are the proof of the journey, a journey that began by taking the first step and the first block from right under their feet. Archaeology can reconstruct the rhythm of these ancient sites by thinking in sequences. The concept is called a French term meaning operational sequence. It is not just a fancy label, it is a powerful lens. By breaking down the monolithic process into its logical, step-by-step stages, we can see the quarry not as a static whole, but as a living, breathing factory floor. The sequence typically begins with the search for the perfect stone, guided by both geology and spiritual belief. Next comes extraction, the ceremonial and physical act of freeing the block. Then, rough shaping occurs right at the quarry face, knocking off the most excessive weight before the journey. Transport is its own monumental phase, followed by fine carving and polishing at the destination, and finally, the dramatic act of erection. What they reveal so brilliantly is that each of these major steps likely demanded its own dedicated space, its own sub-district, within the larger quarry zone. Think of it like a production line, where the raw material moves from one specialized station to the next, each area optimized for a specific task. We can see a clear blueprint for this at a very different, yet conceptually similar site, the Neolithic flint mines of Grimes Graves in England. Here, thousands of years ago, communities dug deep shafts to extract high-quality flint for tools. The site organization is remarkably sophisticated. There are clear areas for the actual mining shafts, separate zones for the initial knapping and rough shaping of the flint cores, and distinct dumping grounds for waste material. The workflow is physically etched into the landscape. Now, scale that concept up from handheld flint to 100-ton blocks of granite or basalt. The same organizational logic would apply, just on a colossal scale. At a monolith quarry, you would have the primary extraction face, a dedicated area for the initial shaping with heavy pounders, a prepared loading bay with ramps for attaching sledges, a storage zone for tools and materials, and likely a separate, sheltered area for the master carvers to begin the finer details before the risky journey. Applying the transforms our understanding. It turns a silent field of scattered stones and pits into a dynamic narrative. We start to see where the apprentices learned their craft, where the overseers stood to coordinate the pull, and where the workers might have gathered to eat. All arranged according to the relentless logic of the operational sequence. This method allows us to map the intellectual structure behind the physical labor. It shows that the true monument was not just the final stone, but the invisible architecture of the process itself, a temporary, perfectly organized machine of human intention, now silent, waiting for us to trace its steps once more. The stone's journey began long before the first hammer fell. It began in story. Across the world, the very substance of the earth was not seen as inert matter, but as a sleeping form of life, consciousness, or divinity waiting to be awakened. This mythological layer is the master key to the monolithic mind. In the Hindu tradition, the Shiva lingam is often revered not as a carved idol, but as a self-manifested stone that appeared of its own divine will, a natural mark of the god's presence already within the world. To shape such a stone was not an act of creation, but of careful unveiling, of helping a spiritual truth emerge into visibility. This idea transforms the entire endeavor. Similarly, in the Andean worldview, mountains, outcrops, and particular stones were living, sentient beings imbued with sacred force. A monolith was not a block, it was a captured essence, a powerful entity being invited to take up residence among the people. These foundational myths provided the essential narrative that justified the immense quarrying effort. The workforce was not merely mining a resource, they were participating in a cosmic event, the divine birth of a stone. The Quarry district was the delivery room for this emergence, the site of revelation where the hidden became seen. Every strike of the hammer, every pull on the rope, was reenacting a sacred story. The hardship was not pointless toil, it was a form of devotion, a ritual suffering that mirrored the labor pains of the earth itself, giving form to the gods. This perspective the labor and hallowed the ground. It turned the dust-choked, noisy quarry into a temple as consecrated as any finished shrine. We can read this belief etched directly into the iconography left behind. In Egyptian quarries, carvings show the pharaoh presenting offerings to Hathor, lady of the mountain, before the stone is cut. He is not a foreman giving an order, he is a supplicant asking permission. At the Olmec sites, the colossal heads are believed to represent revered rulers transformed into stone ancestors, their essence forever merged with the volcanic basalt pulled from the sacred mountains. The stone was their second body, their eternal vessel. This deep-seated belief system solves the motivational puzzle that pure economics cannot. It explains why generations would devote their lives to a single stone. You would endure back-breaking labor for a paycheck, but you would transcend it for a god. The Quarry district, therefore, was the physical intersection of myth and manpower. It was where a culture's most profound stories about the nature of reality were made physically, arduously true. The silence that eventually fell over these sites was not just the end of work, but perhaps, in some cases, the fading of the very story that made the work meaningful. The very ground they reshaped would one day shape their fate. The ecological footprint of these quarry districts was immense and often irreversible, a hidden cost paid not in gold or labor, but in the living systems of the landscape itself. To feed the insatiable hunger of a monolith, entire environments were re-engineered. Forests fell at an astonishing rate, not just for the construction of temples or palaces, but for the mundane, endless needs of the quarry itself. Wood was the essential fuel for fires used in the fire-setting technique to fracture stubborn rock. Even more critically, it was the material for the countless rollers, sledges, and levers needed to move a single block. This demand created a radiating circle of deforestation, stripping the hillsides around the work zone and altering local climates long before the monument was ever complete. The act of extraction itself carved wounds into the earth that went far deeper than the stone. Removing millions of tons of bedrock destabilized slopes, accelerating soil erosion, and silting up nearby rivers and streams. The hydrology of an entire region could be changed, as ancient water tables were exposed or diverted by the vast new cavities. This is not just a modern observation, it is a lesson written in the silent soil of places like Easter Island. The intense quarrying activity requiring vast timber for moving, is seen by many researchers as a major driver in the island's deforestation. This loss of trees, in turn, led to increased soil erosion, decreased agricultural productivity, and the collapse of the seabird populations that were a crucial food source. The quarry that gave the island its cultural soul may have inadvertently contributed to the severe hardship that eventually stilled the hammers forever. This legacy forces a difficult question about the ancient world's understanding of sustainability. Did the master planners recognize the long-term environmental cost, or was the ideological payoff of the monolith so overwhelming that it blinded them to the slowly accumulating damage? The evidence suggests that in many cases, the project's symbolic necessity simply outweighed any practical concern for the future. Yet nature, in its relentless adaptability, always began writing the next chapter. The very scars left behind often became the foundation for new life. Those gaping quarry pits, over centuries, would fill with rainwater, transforming into permanent lakes that served as vital new water sources for later communities. The steep, sheltered walls of abandoned excavations became habitats for unique plants and animals, creating unexpected pockets of biodiversity. The altered landscapes, initially born from sheer human will, were gradually reclaimed and rewoven into the ecological tapestry. This dual impact is a profound mirror of our relationship with the planet. We possess this immense capacity to reshape the raw materials of the world according to our grandest visions, leaving behind wounds of our ambition. And yet, the Earth possesses an equally immense capacity for response, for healing and adaptation in ways we seldom anticipate. The Quarry District thus becomes a living palimpsest, a layered document where human intention is etched directly into the geology and ecology of a place. One generation's industrial sacrifice becomes another generation's accidental sanctuary, a quiet lake where the ghost of a giant still sleeps beneath the water. The Travertine built the very face of imperial power. This luminous, honey-colored stone, prized for its strength and beauty, was not destined for a single, silent giant, but for an empire's endless appetite for spectacle. The quarries of ancient modern fed the construction of Rome's most iconic symbols, the soaring arches of the Colosseum, the massive bulk of the and the foundations of St. Peter's Basilica. Here, the Quarry District model evolved into something new, not a temporary city for one dream, but a permanent industrial engine for an empire's identity. The scale was still monolithic in its ambition, but the output was continuous, turning a single geological resource into the literal bedrock of Roman civilization. This was not a project with a defined end. It was an open-ended enterprise, a sprawling industrial zone that pulsed in rhythm with the demands of the capital. The connection was physical and direct. The via, a dedicated consular road, served as the stone's lifeline, a 20-mile artery along which countless wagon loads of freshly cut travertine rattled toward Rome. The road itself became part of the machine, engineered and maintained by the state to ensure this vital flow never ceased. Around the quarries, a complete support economy flourished. Temporary worker settlements hardened into permanent towns. Workshops for iron tools, blacksmiths for wagon repairs, and offices for imperial overseers all clustered around the extraction sites. Transformed into a boom town, its entire social and economic life orbiting the pits from which the stone was won. The extraction process itself was a marvel of organized repetition. Unlike the ceremonial liberation of a single monolith, this was systematic harvesting. Workers would cut the stone into massive, standardized blocks directly from the vast, layered deposits. They used techniques perfected over generations, driving iron wedges into natural fissures, employing water to expand wooden plugs, and carefully prying the blocks free. The quarries were a landscape of terraces and galleries, a stepped architecture of removal that allowed teams to work on multiple levels simultaneously. It was a factory without walls, where the product was the landscape itself, consumed block by block. This sustained operation reveals a critical evolution in the concept. The quarries were not devoted to a singular spiritual objective, but to a political and cultural one, the perpetual glorification of Rome. The imperial administration did not just purchase stone, it managed a supply chain. It controlled the land, organized the labor, often using a mix of skilled freedmen and enslaved individuals, and dictated the quotas. The quarry district became a fixed asset on the empire's balance sheet, a reliable source of both material and propaganda. The organizational principles, however, echoed the older models. There was still a clear hierarchy of engineers, foremen, and laborers. There was still a dedicated transport corridor. There was still a surrounding community whose purpose was inextricably linked to the stone. The core machinery of the dedicated district remained, but its fuel was no longer a fleeting divine vision. It was the enduring engine of imperial might. This shift from project to permanent industry marks a fascinating point in the story of human ambition. It shows how a society can institutionalize the monumental impulse, turning the awe-inspiring effort of quarrying into a standard bureaucratic function. The stones did not wait for a specific ceremonial moment. They flowed continuously to meet the schedule of the next games, the next triumph, the next emperor's building program. In doing so, they helped build something even more durable than a temple, an aesthetic language of power written in Travertine that defined an era and still defines a city today. The silence that eventually fell here was not the abrupt halt of a failed dream, but the slow fading of the empire that demanded its voice. These legends point to a knowledge that seems to vanish from the stone itself. Beyond the hammers and wedges, whispers persist of a different kind of ancient engineering, one that did not fight the stone's hardness but persuaded it. Stories from various cultures describe methods to temporarily soften rock, using secret plant extracts or the precise application of sound, making the material pliable like clay for carving. While such ideas challenge conventional archaeological understanding, they invite us to consider the full, perhaps forgotten, breadth of the ancient artisan's mind. Take the persistent accounts from the Andes. Spanish chroniclers recorded tales from Inca stonemasons about a plant they called. According to these stories, a liquid derived from this plant could be applied to stone surfaces, causing them to soften enough for workers to mold and fit the massive blocks with their renowned precision. The specific plant has never been conclusively identified by modern botany, and no chemical residue has been found on the stones, leading mainstream science to view these as symbolic myths or misunderstood metaphors for the labor process. Yet, the consistency of the narrative is intriguing. It suggests a transmitted memory of a technique that altered the physical relationship between worker and material, turning a battle of attrition into a more manageable, almost artistic process. Parallel ideas emerge from experiments in Some researchers have proposed that specific sonic frequencies, perhaps produced by drums, chanting, or even the striking of the stone itself, could have been used to create a resonant state that reduced the material's internal friction. The concept is that everything has a natural resonant frequency, and if you match it precisely, you can induce a state of vibrational harmony that makes the structure more malleable. While large-scale proof remains elusive, small-scale experiments have shown that sound can affect the flow and settling of granular materials. This line of inquiry asks us to listen differently to the quarry soundscape. What if the rhythmic pounding and chanting served not only to coordinate labor, but to actively prepare the stone, using vibration as a kind of invisible tool? If even one of these methods held a grain of practical truth, it would force a dramatic recalculation of everything we think we know about the quarry districts. The workforce needed to carve and shape the stone could have been significantly smaller, or the projects completed in a fraction of the time. The social and economic burden on the civilization would be lessened, changing the narrative from one of overwhelming, coercive effort to one of highly specialized, efficient craft. It reframes the master artisans not just as skilled laborers, but as keepers of a profound natural philosophy. Understanding properties of plants and physics that left no obvious trace in the archaeological record, skepticism from the scientific community is not only expected but essential. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and thus far, the material proof for stone softening technologies is absent. What we are left with are the accounts, the legends, and the nagging perfection of some stonework that seems to defy the tools we have found. Investigating these stories is less about proving a specific lost recipe and more about maintaining intellectual humility. It encourages us to remember that our view of the past is constructed from what survived: the stone hammers, the quarry scars, the abandoned blocks. The more ephemeral tools, the knowledge passed orally from master to apprentice, the understanding of local botanicals, these are the first things to disappear when a culture transforms or falls. So perhaps the true lost technology is not a magical plant juice, but the holistic mindset that saw no firm boundary between chemistry, acoustics, geology, and spirituality. The ancient engineer's toolkit may have been far more diverse than a collection of stone and bronze implements. It likely included a deep observational wisdom of the natural world, an understanding of resonant frequencies, and ritual practices that enhanced material work. Exploring these legends does not mean abandoning science, but expanding our curiosity about the possible sophistication of ancient problem-solving. It leaves us with a resonant question. How much of the past's genius was written not in stone, but in the fragile, forgotten spaces between one generation's teaching and the next's? Learning the digital age offers us a new kind of chisel. One that carves not stone, but data. Modern archaeologists are no longer limited to measuring tapes and sketches. They now wield tools like LiDAR, light detection and ranging, which uses laser pulses from aircraft to strip away dense forest canopy, revealing the hidden geometry of the earth beneath. Combined with photogrammetry, a technique that stitches thousands of photographs into a precise three-dimensional model, these technologies are performing a kind of digital archaeology. They allow us to resurrect the quarry district not as a ruin, but as a functioning virtual space. At a site like the unfinished Obelisk quarry in Aswan, a detailed three-dimensional model can be rotated, zoomed into, and analyzed from angles no human could ever physically achieve. We can stand virtually on the quarry floor and look up at the towering walls, or hover above it like an ancient overseer, seeing the entire operational layout at once. This digital perspective reveals patterns that centuries of weathering have obscured to the naked eye. The subtle pathways worn into the bedrock by thousands of footsteps become clear, mapping the traffic flow of workers and materials. Piles of stone debris, once seen as random scatter, can be analyzed to identify distinct waste disposal zones, showing how the site was kept organized. The models can even suggest the locations of long-vanished administrative centers or tool sheds by revealing unnatural flat areas or strategic vantage points within the chaotic landscape. This spatial analysis transforms speculation into calculation. Researchers can use the model to precisely measure the volume of stone removed from the quarry, moving from rough estimates to exact figures. By understanding the known rates at which ancient tools could work specific types of rock, they can then extrapolate the staggering number of labor hours invested. They can analyze the efficiency of the ramp systems, testing theories about the most logical paths for moving multi-ton blocks. The chaotic jumble of pits and trenches is decoded into a readable blueprint of ancient industry. This quantitative data provides a solid foundation for our theories about the scale of these operations. It tells us with new certainty that the quarry was not just a sacred hillside, but a meticulously organized factory with a clear logistical footprint. It allows us to compare the layout of different quarry districts across the world, searching for common principles of pre-industrial engineering. This digital resurrection does more than visualize the past, it lets us interrogate it. We can run simulations, testing how many people would be needed to pull a stone along a specific path, or how it might have been illuminated at different times of day. The silent quarry, through the lens of technology, begins to whisper its secrets in the language of data, offering a tangible, measurable understanding of the ambition that once filled that empty space. The power to reshape a mountain was the ultimate signature of a ruler. In the ancient world, the most potent display of authority was not a tax ledger or a military parade, though those mattered. It was the ability to command thousands of people to leave their fields, their homes, and their families, and to devote years of their lives to a task with no immediate practical return. To quarry a single, perfect monolith was a breathtakingly expensive act of political theater. It demonstrated that the ruler's will was absolute, capable of bending both the landscape and the lives of his people toward a single, symbolic vision. The quarry district was the stage for this performance. Every worker who pounded a hammer, every overseer who shouted an order, every farmer who sent his grain to feed the operation was participating in a ritual that reinforced the hierarchy. The state's power was not an abstract idea in a distant capital. It was the dust in their lungs, the ache in their muscles, and the towering block slowly emerging from the earth. This was power made physically, undeniably real. Consider the strategic dimension of this control. In a world built from stone, command over the best quarries was a form of immense economic and military leverage. Denying a rival city-state or a rebellious province access to high-quality building stone could cripple their ability to construct fortifications, temples, or statues that projected their own authority. The quarry was not just a resource site, it was a geopolitical asset. By monopolizing the source of a particularly prized stone, like the rose granite of Aswan or the Travertine, a ruler controlled the very material of legitimacy. This turns the silent quarry into a deeply political document. The immense effort was a public declaration. It said, "Look what we can do together under my command." It transformed the populace from subjects into collaborators in a grand, shared destiny, their labor literally set in stone for eternity. This collaboration, however, was carefully framed. The finished monolith, whether an obelisk, or a colossal head, then became the perfect tool for propaganda. It carried the ruler's image or the state's ideology into the public square, a permanent, immovable reminder of who held the power to make such things possible. The cycle was self-reinforcing. The quarry proved the power, and the monument celebrated it, creating a feedback loop of authority carved directly into the earth and the skyline. This reveals the quarry district's final, crucial role. It was the engine room of a political idea, the place where abstract sovereignty was forged into tangible, enduring stone. The rhythm of stone still shapes a living city in the hills of Vermont. Bar, a community etched into the very bedrock it mines, offers a startling modern echo of the ancient patterns we have been tracing. For over 150 years, this town has not just had a quarry, it has been a quarry, its identity, economy, and daily life flowing from the fine-grained granite beneath its streets. This is not a relic of antiquity, but a vibrant, ongoing case study, a living lens through which we can imagine the social heartbeat of those long silent districts. Here, the concept of a place devoted to monoliths, or their modern equivalents in tombstones, statues, and capitol buildings, continues in real time. The granite from Bar has built landmarks from the New York Stock Exchange to the National Gallery of Art, a testament to how a single stone can still project power and memory across a continent. The entire town operates as a specialized ecosystem. Generations of families have worked as sculptors, carvers, polishers, and engineers, their skills passed down like sacred knowledge. The local technical college trains new artisans in the exacting craft of stonework, while the symphony of saws and chisels provides the town's constant soundtrack. Social clubs, unions, and even local festivals revolve around the industry, forging a collective identity as solid as the material they work. This deep connection provides an invaluable analogy. When we study the worker settlements at Giza or the specialized workshops we are looking at the ancient blueprint for a place like Bar. The pride of craft, the intergenerational transfer of skill, the way a community's entire social fabric is woven around a single, demanding purpose, these are not abstract concepts. They are lived realities in Vermont, giving human texture to the archaeological footprints. It shows us that the ancient quarry district was never just a work site, it was a home. It was where people raised families, celebrated festivals, and built a culture defined by their shared, monumental task. The stone dust settled on everything, becoming part of the community's very soul. This modern parallel also highlights a crucial, often overlooked aspect, the fragility of such a mono-economy. Bar has faced its own challenges with market shifts and technological changes, reminding us how vulnerable a society becomes when its destiny is tied to a single resource or output. The ancient quarries were abandoned for many reasons, but the modern story of Bar suggests that even the most resilient stone-based community must constantly adapt to survive. Ultimately, this living example closes a profound loop in our understanding. It demonstrates that the drive to carve meaning from stone is a continuous thread in the human story, connecting the pharaoh's overseer to the Union sculptor in Vermont. Both are participants in a tradition that transforms raw geology into legacy, and in doing so, forges something equally enduring, a community whose identity is forever set in stone. The stone itself holds a hidden chemical signature, a unique fingerprint waiting to be read. To unlock the full story of these quarries, we must move beyond the visible marks of tools and listen to a deeper conversation, one where the hard data of geology meets the human narratives of archaeology. This is not a single field of study, but a powerful interdisciplinary dialogue. Each discipline brings a different piece of the puzzle, and only when fitted together do we see the complete picture of these ancient industrial landscapes. Geologists act as master detectives of mineralogy. By analyzing the microscopic crystals, trace elements, and isotopic signatures within a stone block, they can perform a kind of forensic match. They can take a finished monument from a distant city and trace it, with astonishing precision, back to the exact cliff face or even the specific layer within a quarry miles away. This scientific fingerprinting transforms speculation into fact. It confirms ancient trade routes that were once only guessed from historical texts. It reveals territorial control, showing which ruler had access to which prized stone source. It can even identify imposters, stones brought in from a secondary quarry to mimic a more prestigious material. This data turns abstract maps of influence into concrete lines drawn in stone. Meanwhile, archaeologists dig into the living context that surrounded the stone. They sift through the very sediments of the quarry floor, not for tools alone, but for the fragile, forgotten echoes of daily life. Pollen grains preserved in the dirt tell a story of the ancient environment. What trees grew nearby before they were felled for sledges? What crops were cultivated in the fields that fed the workers? Charred seeds and animal bones from ancient hearths reveal the diet and culinary habits of the labor force. Were they eating well on state-supplied grain and meat, or scraping by on meager rations? The answer, found in these microscopic remains, speaks volumes about the social contract between the builders and the authority that commanded them. This fusion is where the story truly comes alive. Consider the enigma of the Stonehenge bluestones. For centuries, their origin was a mystery wrapped in legend. Then, modern geological analysis stepped in. Researchers like Richard used sophisticated techniques to match the distinctive spotted dolerite of the stones to very specific outcrops in the hills of Wales, over 150 miles away. The geology gave us the where, but it was the archaeological excavation that provided the how and the who. At the quarry sites like Cairn, archaeologists uncovered the physical evidence. Stone mauls used to pry the pillars free, charcoal from the campfires of Neolithic workers, and even the artificial stone and earth platforms they built to ease the lowering of these massive monoliths from the hillside. The geology confirmed the journey, the archaeology revealed the journey makers. This combined evidence does more than answer a technical question. It transforms a cold geological formation into a warm human story. We no longer just see a rocky hillside in Wales. We see a temporary encampment from 5,000 years ago, where people gathered, lit fires, shared meals, and coordinated the arduous task of freeing these sacred stones. The interdisciplinary approach turns data points into a narrative. It allows us to measure not just the volume of stone removed, but the scale of the human endeavor required to remove it. The marriage of hard science and cultural interpretation is not just helpful, it is essential. It reminds us that the Quarry District was a point where the immutable logic of the earth intersected with the fleeting, passionate ambitions of humanity. To understand one, we must learn to speak the language of both. That invisible human dimension is perhaps the most powerful artifact the quarry left behind. We have measured the tons of stone and mapped the ramps, but what did it truly feel like to be part of that machine? To spend seasons, perhaps a lifetime, within a landscape whose sole purpose was the birth of a single stone. The psychology of such an endeavor is a complex tapestry, woven from equal threads of profound purpose and grinding monotony. On one hand, participating in a project of cosmic significance, one infused with ritual and the promise of eternity, could forge an unbreakable group identity. Your individual labor, your sweat, was literally being transformed into a legacy that would outlive the gods. This was not just a job, it was a sacred vocation, a chance to etch your community's faith into the permanent record of the earth. The rhythmic, synchronized work, the unified pull on a rope, the collective strike of a hammer, would have created a powerful, almost trance-like state of shared focus, binding the worker not just to the task, but to every other person performing it. This collective effervescence is a potent social glue, turning a diverse population into a single, purposeful body. Yet the shadow side of this unity is the potential for profound fatigue, both physical and spiritual. The work was brutally hard, dangerous, and repetitive. Days would blur into a cycle of dust, ache, and the unrelenting demand of the stone. What happened when the initial fervor faded, when the body grew weary, and the finished monolith still seemed a distant dream? Resentment could simmer beneath the surface, a quiet questioning of the authority that commanded such sacrifice. There is also the risk of a kind of ideological burnout, where the grand narrative that justified the labor begins to feel abstract against the reality of blistered hands and an empty stomach. The psychological contract between the builder and the belief system was under constant strain. The artifacts left in the worker settlements are our clearest window into this inner world, and they tell a story not of relentless drudgery, but of resilient humanity. Archaeologists find small, personal touches everywhere. At Giza, in the workers' town, they uncovered not just barracks, but evidence of bakeries producing different grades of bread, suggesting a varied diet and perhaps even a form of status or reward. They found fragments of musical instruments, simple flutes and rattles, hinting at evenings filled with music and song, a necessary release from the day's toil. Gaming pieces, carved from stone chips or pottery shards, speak of leisure and friendly competition. Beads, amulets, and traces of cosmetics reveal a desire for personal adornment and identity amidst the uniform task. These are not the signs of a crushed spirit. They are the fingerprints of people building a life, not just a monument. They carved out spaces for joy, for play, for love, and for personal expression within the all-consuming project. The camaraderie born from shared hardship would have been real, a source of strength and comfort. Friendships forged over a shared water jug or during a dice game after sunset could make the unbearable bearable. This emotional landscape is the essential, often missing, layer in our understanding. It reminds us that the Quarry district was not just an economic zone or a ritual precinct. It was, above all, a community. People fell in love there, told stories, celebrated births, and mourned losses, all under the long shadow of the emerging giant. Their pride in the collective achievement was likely intertwined with a deep personal longing for home, for rest, for a life beyond the stone. To hold both truths in mind, the awe-inspiring collective purpose and the humble human reality of the individuals within it, is to finally hear the full, resonant echo of those silent quarries. The sheer scale of these quarries can feel like a message from another world. It is no wonder that, when faced with such silent grandeur, some minds leap to extraordinary explanations. A persistent vein of speculation suggests these sites are not monuments to human societies we know, but to ones we have forgotten, advanced lost civilizations, perhaps even visitors from beyond our planet, who provided the knowledge to move mountains. These ideas, while standing firmly outside the boundaries of mainstream archaeology, hold a mirror to our own sense of awe. They emerge from a genuine, powerful question: how could people with simple tools possibly achieve this? Examining these theories is not about validating them, but about understanding the profound mystery they attempt to solve, and, in doing so, clarifying what the evidence actually tells us. The appeal of a lost master race or extraterrestrial guidance is fundamentally a story of simplification. It collapses the complex, generational saga of social organization, trial and error, and cultural devotion into a single, neat event. A forgotten technology or an otherworldly blueprint offers a shortcut, resolving our modern disbelief at the ancient workers' patience and skill. It is a testament to the sites themselves that they can inspire such sweeping narratives. They seem to defy the gradual timeline of human progress we are taught, appearing instead as sudden, perfect miracles. Yet this is where the disciplined work of archaeology provides a different, and in many ways more remarkable story. Decades of excavation and analysis have painstakingly reconstructed the indigenous development of these technologies. We have not found alien alloys or impossible machinery. Instead, we have found the humble human tools, the worn stone mauls, the broken pottery lamps for working in quarry tunnels, the ramps built from rubble and earth. We see the gradual innovation, the way quarrying techniques evolve from one pharaoh's reign to the next, or how the carving styles on Easter Island shift subtly over centuries, reflecting internal social changes. The evidence points not to a sudden gift of knowledge, but to a slow, deliberate accumulation of it, passed from master to apprentice, refined through generations of focused effort. Addressing these speculative ideas respectfully serves a crucial purpose. It allows us to clearly separate the documented human journey from the captivating myth. By engaging with the question of how, we are forced to articulate the overwhelming evidence for organized human labor. We can point to the worker settlements at Giza, with their bakeries and medical facilities, proving a sustained, earthly workforce. We can reference the experimental archaeology that shows teams of people, using known techniques, can indeed move multi-ton stones. The true wonder is not that some outside force did it, but that human societies chose to do it, marshaling every resource toward a shared vision of the eternal. This discussion ultimately highlights why these places hold an enduring grip on our imagination. They exist in that fertile space between what we can prove and what we can feel. The academic narrative gives us the blueprint, but the silent, moonlit quarry stirs something deeper, a sense of connection to an ambition so vast it borders on the incomprehensible. The lost civilization theory, in its own way, is a form of tribute. It is an admission that the accomplishment feels superhuman, and in a sense it was. It was the product of a society operating at the absolute peak of its unified will, a kind of human that could achieve what no individual ever could. This enduring mystery is the bridge. It connects the dry data of the archaeologist's report to the wide-eyed visitor standing at the quarry's edge. It allows for both the rigor of science and the romance of the unknown, reminding us that some achievements, even when fully explained, never lose their power to astonish. High in the Peruvian Andes, a fortress was being built against time itself. The quarries clinging to the mountainside across the sacred river were not born from a timeless ceremonial vision. They were a direct, urgent response to a crisis. Here, the Inca were not constructing for eternity under a stable sun, but for immediate survival against the Spanish advance. The stone they chose was a striking pink rhyolite, a volcanic rock that seems to hold the color of a sunset, destined for the monumental walls of their last great stronghold. This was a quarry district engineered under the pressure of invasion, and its every feature shouts a story of speed, strategy, and desperate ingenuity. The organization reveals a fascinating shift in priorities. Unlike the sprawling, permanent quarries that fed the steady growth this was a targeted, project-specific operation. Its entire layout was dictated by two overwhelming needs: to move stone faster than ever before, and to protect the workers and the supply line from attack. The solution was a breathtaking feat of logistics. From the quarry faces high on the mountain, the Incas constructed a massive, purpose-built ramp, a stone highway descending thousands of feet toward the river valley. This was not a simple path. It was a carefully engineered slide, with retaining walls and graded surfaces designed to control the descent of multi-ton blocks. At the base, the challenge was even greater. The rushing river lay between the quarry and the construction site. The Inca response was a monumental causeway, a raised earthen bridge that diverted the river itself, creating a dry passage for the stones to cross. This was infrastructure built with military precision. The causeway served a dual purpose. It allowed for the continuous flow of building material, and it could be easily defended, turning the river into a moat and the causeway into a choke point. The entire system, quarry, ramp, causeway, fortress, functioned as a single, integrated defensive machine. The workforce here operated under a state of emergency. The usual rhythms of the labor system were likely intensified, drawing on loyal communities from the surrounding sacred valley in a unified, patriotic effort. Every aspect of the quarry's operation reflects this urgency. Blocks were rough-shaped with incredible speed, and the transport system was designed for volume and velocity over perfect polish. This case study profoundly changes our understanding of the monolithic model. It proves that the quarry district was not a tool reserved only for religious glorification or the slow assertion of imperial power. When faced with an existential threat, the same organizational genius could be pivoted with stunning flexibility toward rapid, defensive construction. The pink rhyolite walls are more than beautiful stonework. They are petrified resolve, each block a testament to a society marshaling its deepest knowledge of engineering and logistics, not to celebrate a god-king, but to preserve a way of life. The quarries show us that crisis does not halt monumental ambition. It redirects it, carving the story of resistance directly into the mountainside. The final silence of a quarry is never truly final. The same landscapes that once echoed with industrial purpose now resonate with a different kind of human activity. Many of these immense forgotten sites have been reborn, not as workshops, but as classrooms. They have been meticulously redefined, transformed from industrial heartlands into cultural heritage sites, open-air museums, and the centerpieces of national parks. The Aswan Quarry, where the unfinished obelisk sleeps, is now a protected archaeological park where visitors walk on wooden platforms above the ancient tool marks. The factory is the solemn, breathtaking core of Easter Island's National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This metamorphosis is profound. The meaning of the place has been completely rewritten, shifting from a producer of stone for the present to an educator about the past. Its value is no longer in what it can make, but in what it can teach us. This modern afterlife is a fascinating new chapter in the quarry's long biography, but it is not a simple one. It raises complex questions about how we choose to remember. When we guide tourists along a marked path through these spaces, what story are we telling? Do we present them primarily as feats of engineering, emphasizing the how? Do we frame them as sacred spaces, asking for quiet reverence and focusing on the spiritual why? Or do we interpret them as ecological or social cautionary tales, highlighting the costs of overreach and the fragility of civilizations? The answer is rarely just one. A visitor to Baalbek walks the same ramps as Roman engineers, feels the scale of the stone of the pregnant woman, and also learns about the complex layers of history and belief that intersect there. The site does not speak with a single voice. It whispers of engineering, empire, religion, and rediscovery all at once. This layered interpretation is the great challenge and opportunity of preservation. How do we protect the physical fabric from the wear of countless footsteps, while also protecting its intangible spirit from being reduced to a mere photo opportunity? The ethics of tourism hover over these places. The very act of loving a site to death is a real danger. The funds generated by visitors are essential for conservation, yet the presence of those visitors introduces erosion, pollution, and inevitable change. It is a delicate balance between access and preservation, between sharing a wonder and safeguarding its authenticity. In their new role, these quarries continue to shape human understanding, just as they always have. Once they shaped societies by providing the material for their grandest symbols. Now, they shape our global consciousness by providing material for reflection. They stand as open books on geology, archaeology, anthropology, and ethics. They force us to confront the heights of human collaboration and the depths of our capacity to alter the world. A child looking up at a still embedded in the slopes of is not learning about stone extraction. They are learning about ambition, community, and mystery. The quarry, in its afterlife, has become a philosopher. Its lessons are no longer about moving mountains, but about understanding the people who dared to try and the world they left behind in the attempt. This transformation ensures that the story carved into these landscapes is never finished. It is simply being read by a new generation, in a new language, finding new meaning in the old, enduring stone. The empty space left behind is a perfect mold of the ambition that once filled it. By pulling together all we have seen, from the sacred pits of to the industrial canyons of Aswan, a powerful pattern emerges. The immense quarry devoted to a single monolith is not merely an ancient construction site. It is a unique fingerprint, a direct physical imprint of a society's deepest inner workings. The very existence of such a specialized district acts as a clear diagnostic signal to archaeologists. It announces the convergence of several critical conditions. First, it reveals a political structure with extraordinarily centralized authority, capable of commanding and coordinating a vast portion of the population for a non-utilitarian goal. Second, it points to a unifying ideology, a spiritual or social belief so potent it could motivate generations of people to contribute their labor, viewing the work as a sacred duty rather than mere coercion. Third, it demonstrates a mastery of logistical planning and resource management that borders on the modern, an ability to sustain a complex, years-long supply chain for a single symbolic output. And finally, it broadcasts a worldview that placed supreme, almost ultimate, value on symbolic permanence, on making an idea literally unshakable, set in stone for eternity. The absence of such districts in other sophisticated societies is equally revealing. The classic Maya, with their brilliant city-states, or the mercantile empires of the Mediterranean, often sourced stone locally and built in phases. Their power and identity were expressed through different means: intricate carvings, vast trading networks, or fluid political alliances. They did not pour their entire societal energy into a single, colossal block. This contrast is crucial. It tells us that the monolithic quarry district is a specific cultural invention, not an inevitable stage of development. For archaeologists, this pattern becomes a powerful diagnostic tool. When they identify a landscape utterly transformed for the extraction of one type of monumental stone, they are not just finding a quarry. They are pinpointing a moment in that culture's history, a period of peak ideological cohesion and concentrated resource mobilization. It marks an era when a society's story about itself was so compelling, so urgent, that it demanded to be carved from the living earth itself. Therefore, to walk through these silent excavations is to do much more than tour an ancient workplace. You are holding a lens up to the civilization that created it. You are observing its core ambitions and its highest capabilities, frozen in a moment of maximum expression and organization. The scale of the whole tells you the scale of the dream. The precision of the ramps reveals the precision of their planning. The tools left behind whisper of the human hands that held them, bound together by a shared vision, so grand it temporarily bent the very logic of economics and ecology. In the end, the Quarry District stands as the most honest monument of all. The finished obelisk or statue might tell a polished, official story of gods and kings. But the quarry tells the raw, unfiltered truth of how that story was made, the sheer weight of collective will, the breathtaking cost, and the fragile, glorious moment when an entire culture chose to define itself not by what it consumed, but by what it could raise from the heart of the world. The story of these quarries is not confined to the past. Our understanding of these ancient industrial landscapes is expanding at a breathtaking pace, driven by technologies that let us see through time itself. Hidden beneath dense jungle canopies or layers of river silt, entirely new quarry districts are waiting to be found, their existence hinted at by the faintest of clues. Ground-penetrating radar can now map the subsurface geometry of a site without moving a single grain of soil, revealing the ghostly outlines of extraction pits, worker pathways, and tool storage areas invisible to the naked eye. From even higher above, advanced satellite imagery and LIDAR surveys scan vast regions, detecting subtle variations in vegetation health or minute changes in elevation that betray the hand of ancient human industry beneath. These are not random anomalies, they are the whispers of ambition, waiting for a team on the ground to listen. Perhaps the most tantalizing frontier lies beneath the waves. Global sea levels have risen and fallen dramatically since the last ice age, meaning coastlines that ancient builders knew are now dozens of feet underwater. This opens a staggering possibility. Some of the most perplexing megalithic stones in the Mediterranean, whose origins have long baffled archaeologists, may have been from coastal cliffs that are now submerged. Underwater archaeology, using sonar mapping and submersibles, could one day discover these lost extraction sites, solving century-old mysteries about how and where these stones began their journey. A quarry swallowed by the sea would be a time capsule of immense value, preserving a moment of work interrupted by a changing world. Even the sites we have studied for decades hold secrets we are only now learning to read. Future advancements in material science may allow us to analyze the molecular structure of a stone surface, discerning not just where it came from, but the exact sequence and angle of tool strikes used to shape it, revealing the individual styles of master carvers. Artificial intelligence, trained on thousands of images of tool marks and debris patterns, could identify subtle, humanly imperceptible signatures of different work gangs or chronological phases, effectively letting us read the daily logbook of the quarry's operation from the stone itself. Each discarded flake of rock, each worn hammerstone, is a data point in a story we are just beginning to decode. This means the map of the ancient monolithic world is still being drawn. Every newly identified quarry district adds another node to a vast, interconnected network of human endeavor. It challenges our previous assumptions about the scale of trade, the reach of cultural influence, and the sheer number of people mobilized for these projects. With each discovery, our awe for ancient ingenuity deepens, not because it simplifies the story, but because it reveals a world even more complex, coordinated, and ambitious than we had previously dared to believe. The final chapter on these immense forgotten quarries has not been written. It is being unearthed, pixel by pixel, sonar ping by sonar ping, promising that the grandest examples of monolithic devotion may still be waiting, silent and patient, beneath the soil or the silent sea. The echoing silence of these quarries is not an end, but a profound question left hanging in the air. Our journey across these immense, forgotten landscapes has shown us far more than ancient construction sites. We have walked through industrial cities that existed for a single purpose, through ritual centers where every hammer strike was a prayer, and through social crucibles where nations were forged in shared sweat and stone dust. From the heartbreaking crack in Aswan's unfinished giant to the haunting, half-born staring from their volcanic womb, these places are the ultimate testament to a universal human drive. It is the drive to make a permanent mark, to carve a dialogue with the divine or with destiny directly into the bones of the earth. They challenge every easy assumption we hold about the limits of pre-industrial society, revealing a breathtaking capacity for organization, faith, and collective will that can move literal mountains. These empty spaces are the negative image of that ambition, a perfect mold of a civilization's grandest dream. As we step back from these echoing pits, their scale should inspire more than wonder. It should spark a deeper, more humble curiosity about the countless other chapters of human endeavor still waiting in the shadows, their stories etched not in written records, but in the reshaped landscape itself. If this exploration of stone and will has captivated you, please subscribe for more journeys into the world's great historical mysteries. And we would love to hear your thoughts. Which of these monolithic projects, from the obelisks of Egypt to the giants of Easter Island, do you find the most astonishing? Share your perspective in the comments below.